Hey everybody. Let's try that again. Hey everybody, and welcome to the second episode of my new podcast. This week I've got a lot to talk about. There's socks that have been released, free patterns, and then my newest fall pattern. I've had yarn come in. First of all, I'm still nervous. I'm still not used to this. Mainly because, okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about my dad, and then this will make sense. So my dad is like this big Indian guy, and he looks really scary all the time. Like he has permanent resting angry / disappointed in you face. So he's just really intimidating looking, but like once you spend some time around him, like you kind of lose being intimidated by him because he constantly says things in the worst way possible. Like he could be saying something completely innocent and he will find a way to say it in like the most offensive, just horrible way that there is to say something. A good example of this is when I was in 6th grade and I was graduating from elementary school. My dad was a school superintendent, so he always spoke at like all the graduations. And so when I was graduating from elementary school, about to go to junior high, my dad was giving a speech in the Civic Center in town. And so my dad is on stage, he's giving a speech, and he's talking about all the different kids, you know, that were in my class and, you know, just different good things about each one of them. And he gets to my friend Jamie. So my dad starts talking about Jamie. And I think what he was trying to say was that Jamie was a cute little kid. What he ended up saying was, Jamie is so cute, she's just like a little doll. You just want to take her out of the box and play with her. It was already quiet, like there was already silence in the auditorium because everyone was listening to my dad talk. But when he said that, the silence thickened like a sauce. It just, everybody, you could practically hear them thinking, did he just say what I think he just said? And he definitely did. And the look on my dad's face, like as soon as he said it, he realized, oh, that's not what I wanted to say. That's not what I wanted to say at all. And he just kind of paused and then said, that didn't come out right. And it's like, no, Greg, it definitely did not come out right. And that's like the story of my dad's life. That didn't come out right. Like that could be his motto. We'll probably put it on his tombstone when he dies. That didn't come out right, because that genuinely, like my dad constantly says things that just in the wrong way. It just, something scrambles up in his head and it just comes out completely wrong. And my mom to this day still calls me and says, you'll never believe what your dad just said. And 9 times out of 10, I don't believe it. Like he continues to surprise with the creative ways that he can mangle something and say it in completely the wrong way. Circling back to what, to the point I'm trying to make, is that I'm terrified that I'm going to do that because I do that too. Like things just come out wrong. I feel like I'm like my dad in that way, that I can say the wrong things sometimes. And so it's stressful. I'm trying so hard to say things in exactly the right way, but I feel like something's going to come out wrong eventually. And I'm just scared I'm not going to realize it until it's too late, until I've already posted something. So that's a big fear that I have in doing this. And I'm just having to overcome it because I really do enjoy it. I loved reading all of your comments. You guys were so kind and so supportive after my first podcast. And it was just really fun getting to talk about knitting. One person was very unhappy that I made a joke about my dog dying. I cannot promise there will, you know, there's definitely going to be more jokes about that. How did she put it? She said it was in poor taste. I love poor taste. I am a huge fan of anything in poor taste. So that's probably gonna happen some more. But for the most part, everybody, you guys were all so kind and stuff. So be sure to tell me in the comments of this video if there's anything in particular you would like me to talk about. One of my friends that I used to work with requested that I talk about some of the weirdos that I used to date. And although that has nothing to do with knitting, it's gonna happen because I just have to share some of these stories with somebody. I don't work with people anymore. I used to work in an office and we would all share these crazy stories from our lives. And I don't have that anymore. So now you guys are just gonna be my office friends. And I'm just going to tell you some weird stories, things that happened in my life. And I hope that you will do the same in the comments because I'm going to want to know. So later in this episode, I will tell you about the first of many weirdos that I dated. And we can talk about that. I thought what I would do is kind of follow the same format with every episode because I like continuity. I don't like change. I like to know what's going to happen. And I like things organized. So I figured that I would start off by talking about stuff that's going on in the world, but not like the big stories, because I feel like we all are pretty aware of like all the big stuff that's happening. So I thought I would talk about the more funny, bizarre stories, things that are going on in the world that you may not be aware of, because there are some bizarre things that happen every day, and like the headlines get me. It's the headlines usually that I love. See, I'm nervous and I'm starting to like, I do that. I can't talk on the phone. Like, does anybody else, like, were you just so relieved when texting was a thing? Because my voice just, when I'm nervous, it does things like that. It like catches and I have to swallow funny. And when someone calls me on the phone, it goes up like 3 octaves. It's not like, you know, hello, this is Summer. It's hello, this is Summer. And I don't know why it does that. It's horrible. So like when the phone ringing is my nightmare and I never answer it. Like if it's important, leave me a message. Otherwise, why aren't you texting like a civilized person? I don't know why people still call anybody because it's horrible. I can't talk on the phone. But anyways, yeah, so sorry. Sometimes my voice might do weird things because I'm nervous. Hopefully that'll go away the more of these I do. Anyways, back to what I was talking about. We'll start with like fun, crazy things that are happening in the world. And then we'll talk about knitting. We'll talk about, you know, socks. We'll talk about yarn. We'll talk about different supplies I'm using that I like. I tried some new needles this week, so I'm going to tell you about those. And then we'll wrap it up with fun story time. So some of the news stories, we'll just dive right in. One of my favorite headlines from this past week was it's elk mating season in Yellowstone National Park. And the headline was, park rangers warn tourists not to get mixed up in that. And I was like, I had to read it 3 times because how do you get, like, are you just standing there, you know, you've got your camera out, you're wandering around Yellowstone, and you see 2 elks mating, and you turn to your friend and say, Linda, hold my drink. I've got to go get mixed up in that. Like, I don't understand what it means when the park service warns tourists not to get mixed up in elk mating. I wasn't planning on it. I had no intention, park ranger, of wandering over and getting mixed up in that. So if you're going to Yellowstone this fall, don't get mixed up in the elk mating. Which I think common sense, like most people, elks are huge animals. I don't get mixed up in elk anything, regardless of what they're doing. They're huge. So that was a cool headline. Another funny story, well, it's not really funny, it's just unbelievable, is this sheep knitting. We're all interested in sheep, right? It sold for like $400,000. Like whatever this sheep was, it was super, super special. And so it sold at auction for like almost $500,000. I forgot its name. I forgot what kind it was. Should have wrote this down on a note card and I didn't. But can we just talk about how certain animals can just make you a small fortune? And I know this because I grew up in a small town. Lots of kids I went to school with paid for brand new vehicles, their entire college education off of selling cows or pigs or whatever. They would breed and raise this glorious, genetically gifted animal, take it to auction and make like $100,000. It's crazy. So that's not unheard of. I do know a little bit about high dollar animal auctions, but once they shear it, does that particular wool off the $400,000 sheep, does it go for like crazy high amounts? Because I kind of want to knit with it. I kind of want to know, is this wool like better than other wools? So I'm not sure. But those were the only 2 stories that really caught my eye. So now let's get into knitting. Yesterday, I released my totally rad ribbed socks. I knit like 3 of these things because once I get started, like when I come up with an idea for a design, I'll knit it out and I'm like, oh, that's great. And then I'll think, oh man, but it could also be great like this or in this color. And so I ended up knitting like 2 and 3 pairs. So this particular pattern ended up having a lot of different options on it. It had 2 different cuffs. You can knit this folded over tabbed cuff, which is really fun. It's really easy to do. There's a video tutorial linked in the pattern to show you how I sew it down, fold it over, knit it, all of that. You can knit a traditional heel flap and gusset. That's an option. You can do a traditional ribbed cuff if folded over, tabbed over thing, you know, aren't your things. You can do a peasant heel. Peasant is such a, it's called a forethought heel, also called a peasant heel. It's almost identical to an afterthought heel. The difference is that you put your stitches on waste yarn. With an afterthought heel, you're snipping your sock, and whew, I can't do that. It just makes my blood turn cold. So forethought heel, peasant heel, you put a line of waste yarn in. And then afterwards you go back, pick up your stitches. They're held on the waste yarn. It's super easy to do. There's different stripe options. You can do 3 stripes, you can do 2 stripes. There's different length options as far as how long to knit your ribbing and, you know, that's how long to make your socks. And I included a bonus page because one day I was sitting there and I was finishing up the second one and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to do some kind of like accoutrement. So I knit a solid pair in this Knit Picks Stroll tweed. This is down heather, and I knit a solid pair so that I could crochet little teeny tiny flowers. So cute, it makes you sick, and put them on the sock. And so I did that. So I did a bonus page in the pattern with instructions on how to crochet these little flowers. There's video tutorials for the peasant heel, the tabbed cuff, the flowers, all kinds of good stuff. For this blue pair, I used a Knitter's Homestead in tweed, the color Moonstone, and it's like one of my favorite colors ever. It's just gorgeous. And then for the accent color, this really beautiful green yellow, this is Goosey Fiber. Goosey Fiber is awesome because almost all of her sock yarn comes in goslings. Goslings are half skeins, so they're like $13. She makes amazing colorways, and so I had bought this. This is I Open at the Close. For the original one that I knit, this is Little Lion Head Knits tweed in Depression Glass, and it's just the most glorious, perfect shade of warm pink. I love it. And then I mixed it with one of her sock minis in the color 5 and Dime, and this is the most perfect red orange ever. I love it. I bought like a bunch of them because I knew I'd want to use it in other stuff. So that pattern came out yesterday. It's available on Ravelry, Etsy, and I will put links to those in the description below the video if you want to check that pattern out. I also, and this was like recent, I talked about this in my first video, I released the free basic sock pattern. So if you want to learn to knit socks, you can get this free pattern. And I will also put the link to the free pattern in the description of this video. And there are tons and tons of tutorial videos here on my YouTube channel. You can learn Magic Loop, and then there are like 5 videos in the How to Knit a Pair of Socks series that teach you everything from the cuff, the leg, the heel flap and gusset, the foot, toes, Kitchener stitch, every single step of the way to knit a basic pair of socks so that you can get started with socks. Then Pearl Soho was kind enough to send me some of their Posy yarn to try, and this is a merino cashmere nylon blend. So they're really soft. That little bit of goat hair, and I'm so perplexed. Like, goats look so rough, and I have been to petting zoos and I have pet them and they are definitely coarse. So this is like a special kind of goat, I guess, but it baffles me that goats can produce like yarn this soft, but it's incredible. It's like, oh, it's so soft. So I basically knit this basic pair of socks in these fun stripes. And I did do a peasant heel on these, but if you're using the basic sock pattern, you can just knit your heel flap and gusset in your fun accent color that I did for the toes and heels. I put this recipe for free up on my Instagram page. It's saved in my highlights under the stripy gumball tab because I was calling these the stripy gumball socks because these colors made me think of gumballs. So if you've knit a pair of basic socks and now you want to try some stripes, there is a free stripe recipe on my Instagram page, and you can knit these fun striped socks. And I put all of the yarn information up there too if you want to use the same yarn colors I did. So that's those. Now let's talk about needles. I tried some new needles this week and I'm really excited to talk about them. First, these are the needles I use for every single pair of socks I knit. These are the Chiagu 40-inch circular needles, size 1, and I love them. Like I have like 4 or 5 pair of these needles because they're just so perfect. They make such great socks. I love size 1 stitches. So I have like a ton of these laying around the house. I always have different projects on the go, plus empty ones ready in case I get an idea. Love these needles, love Magic Loop. Want to start a cult for people who love Magic Loop. That's how much I love it. I just constantly want to convert people to it because I just think it's so great. And I'm one of those people where it's like, if I think something is great, I want you to think it's great too, so we can all think it's great together. So that's how I feel about these needles. But someone alerted me to the existence of this new kind of tiny circular. Well, I say they're new. I think they came out like 2 years ago, but like I don't keep track of stuff. Like something that came out 5 years ago and then I find out about it and I'm like, oh, what's this new thing? And it's not new. It came out like years ago. But so I think that's the case with these particular tiny circulars. I think they came out in like 2018, but I'm just now finding out about them. My relationship with tiny circulars, I hate them like with a passion, and it's because they just hurt my hands. Like in theory, I like the idea of just being able to like knit around, but with tiny circulars, I always feel like my hands are just like, ugh, like they're just claws. They're so uncomfortable. So I've tried many times to knit on tiny circulars, and I just flip and hate them. Like they hurt, and I just throw them and then just pick up my trusty Chiagus and do Magic Loop again. But I'm always willing to give stuff a try. These are Addie's, and I think they're called Easy Socks. I'm not sure. I will put the link to these in the description in the video, so if you want to check them out too, you can. But I think they're Addie Easy Socks. And basically, one needle is longer than the other. So see how that little guy is like really short, and then this one's long, and the longer one is in your right hand. That's on the right-hand side. And it really does make a difference. That one little change in the engineering of this needle, man, it's like so much easier. And it took some getting used to. Like, you know, I started the sock down here. I did the cuff in Magic Loop because I think it's hard to cast on in tiny circulars. Like it's a lot easier if you cast on and knit a little bit your regular method, like double pointed needles. Ugh, I don't like those either. Or Magic Loop. And then switch to the tiny circular. So that's what I did. So I've been knitting since here all the way to here, and maybe like about here, I really started getting in my groove with these things and really started going. And I hate to say it, but I really like them. I don't think that I would knit regular socks with them, but for color work, so much better. It's so much neater and so much easier to do color work. So anyways, color work on socks can be tricky, and these little needles make it a lot easier. So I've been having a really good time with these and like kind of figuring them out and really getting good at them. So I'll put a link to these little wonderful teeny circulars. They're 10 inches. They're not quite a size 1. They're more like a size 1.5. Addie's sizes are different. So they're a little bit bigger, but I don't mind. Like normally I love size 1 needle stitches. I think that's the perfect stitch for a sock. I don't like size 2 stitches. I think they're too big, but this 1.5, it works for me. I really like it. So I'll put a link to these needles in the description of this video in case you want to try them too. And now let's talk about some yarn. I've been really good lately about avoiding buying yarn. I'm on a yarn, you know, I'm trying to like not buy so much because my closet is stuffed. Indie dyed yarn, however, it's like you're getting this beautiful painted masterpiece and it's like $30, okay, compared to $5,000 for a painting, I can do that. So I've got to stop doing that though. I've got to stop. So I've been really good until I saw Big Little Yarn Co. And then it all just went to hell in a handbasket because her yarn is gorgeous. So I told myself, you're just gonna buy one. You're just gonna buy one. And I did. I narrowed it down. I had like 10 skeins in my cart and I was like, okay, I've got to narrow this down. And so I did. I narrowed it down to one. This is the one I picked, Lichen. And it's absolutely gorgeous. It is the most beautiful coppery green with the deep browns. There's some cool tones in there. I mean, it's so good. So I ordered it, was like, great, you did it. You just picked one skein. I'm so proud of you. And then I couldn't stop thinking about this other color. And I was deciding between Lichen and this one. I had narrowed it down from 10 to 2, and this is, you know, This is the other one. Clearly, I bought it. So I was like sitting there and I had ordered it and I was so proud of myself for just sticking to one, but I couldn't stop thinking about this color. This is Matsuri and it's based on, she got the inspiration from a Japanese festival. And these colors are just perfect and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I went back and I bought this one too. And then I sent her a message and I was like, I just went back and bought another skein. Could I please combine shipping? And she was really cool about it and let me. The pictures were beautiful. I couldn't stop looking at the pictures. And then it arrived in the mail and it's just like in person. I can't even describe how beautiful this yarn is. So Big Little Yarn Co. Gorgeous. Give her a look-see. Look-see. Why did I say that? See, there it happens, the awkwardness. I haven't said look-see in my life ever, probably, and now it comes out. Give her a peep. Just go to her Instagram page. Go to her website. I'll put a link to her website in the description of this video. Moving on. Okay, so that's the knitting stuff. We've talked about socks, we've talked about needles, we've talked about yarn. Now it is time for weirdo dating stories. And I know you guys have some too, so please tell me in the comments, and then next week we can talk about yours in addition to some more of mine. So one of my nightmares, and this has been true since I was a little kid, is being sung to, like individually. Like if you're at a concert, it's fine. You know, there's someone singing and if he happens to make eye contact with you in the crowd, no big deal. He quickly moves on to somebody else. But my nightmare is someone like just directly singing to me. I can barely handle talking to people and making eye contact, much less when someone starts singing. Like, ooh, no. And you know how like at concerts sometimes, like Enrique Iglesias or whatever, I don't know, whoever, they pull some lucky person up onto stage and then they start singing to them and everyone else is like, oh my gosh, that person's so lucky. Oh, I would love it if Enrique or whoever was singing to me. No, that's like, kill me. No, absolutely not. It's just my nightmare, always has been. And so I was dating this guy and he was super serious, for the record. Like he was a serious kind of, you know, he read a lot. He was in a band. He wrote amazing music. Like he was a really gifted musician. I didn't see this coming from him. So we'd gone to see a movie. I think it was Fight Club. This is like 20 years ago. I mean, it was a long time ago. And then we went out to eat at Whataburger afterwards and we're sitting in the little plastic booth and we're sitting there eating and I am just having a great time with my hamburger and fries because I was starving. And then he gets up out of nowhere, no warning, no idea this was going to happen, and starts singing a Broadway show tune to me. I don't remember which one it was. Like I have blocked out so many parts of this evening. Like I don't know what song it was. And I don't know why he wouldn't sing one of his own songs either. Like you write beautiful songs. Why aren't you singing one of your own? Why are you picking a Broadway show tune? Don't know. Didn't ask. But anyways, there was flourishes to it. Like there was a lot of like that. And then there was like, there was dancing and oh, it was horrible. And it was happening and it was happening to me and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know what face to make. It was just like, I was dying inside. And it's not that I was embarrassed about other people seeing. I could care less about other people. It was just more me. It was just like this deep level of mortification and embarrassment and awkwardness. It was horrifying. And to this day, I don't like it. It ended and then he sat back down and we just resumed eating and talking. And it was like, I don't know. To this day, I don't know what it was. It was completely out of character for this person. We stopped dating shortly after that. Fun fact though, my husband ended up being in a band with him. Like my husband and I met, he was in a different band, and he ended up being in a band with this guy. So it was always kind of awkward because we had dated and we had that Whataburger moment between us. I don't know if this stuff happens in other places. I don't know if it's an Oklahoma thing, like where you might get sung to in a Whataburger, or if this happens elsewhere. I don't know. I don't really know. Anyways, haven't been in a Whataburger since. That was 20 years ago, and I will never and have never set foot in a Whataburger since. I cannot do it. So that's my weirdo dating story for this week. Next week, I'll tell you about the guy that used to steal packaged meat from the butcher counter at the grocery store and hide it in his pants. And I know you're thinking, Summer, like where were you finding these people? I don't know. I don't know. But I'll tell you that story. So please tell me some good stories about weirdos that you dated in the comments so that we can chat about that, because those are the best stories. So next week I'll be gone. I will be on a trip. We are taking our first trip in a post-COVID world. And I think I've planned it out pretty well to where we will have absolutely zero contact with anybody. The place that we rented that we're going to be staying is its own little contained unit with exterior access. We're not going to be eating out, going to bars, obviously, any of that, mask anywhere we go. Basically, once we get there, we're going to go to the grocery store, get food, and then that's it. So I'll let you know how that goes and how easy it is, you know, or difficult maybe to travel on the road whenever you're trying to avoid people and wearing a mask and all of that, and just being safe with travel during COVID times. So next week, I'll also be posting on my Instagram, even though I'll be gone. I've got a lot of good content about how to knit better socks, basically how to improve your sock knitting. So I'll be posting that on my Instagram next week, different little tips and tricks to help you become a better sock knitter so that you can create socks that fit well, that look good, that feel good. I've got a highlight saved. I'll go ahead and throw that up on the screen called Sock Doc. And that's where I'm going to be posting different tips and tricks and tutorials, teaching you just different troubleshooting things when it comes to socks. Like I know a lot of people, holes right here where your heels join, how to avoid those, how to avoid ladders when you're knitting in the round, just different things like that, just to kind of help you if there are any tips and tricks you need with sock knitting. So I'll be doing that while I'm gone. And then next week when I come back on the podcast, I'm sure I'll have more good stories to share and more stuff to talk about. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And then, yeah, let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you'd like me to talk about more. If you have any good weirdo dating stories, yeah, any of that, let me know. We can talk about that. And then if you really like this content, hitting subscribe really helps me out a lot. So if you want to go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more of my videos, that would be awesome. And again, I'll link all patterns I talked about, all needles and supplies I talked about, all the yarn I talked about. I'll put those links in the description of this video so that you can access all that stuff. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.